Okay, so in today's episode, we are starting the tale of the RV-12. And so you'll start us seeing to grab some pieces for the beginning of the tale and watching the instruction, listing out the instructions to make sure we are having all the pieces we need for the first few steps.
All right, this is a specific piece of the tail. Do you remember what the piece was called, or the specific part of the tail?
I do not remember that.
This is the vertical stabilizer.
Vertical stabilizer, that's right.
And again, you start with this because it's relatively simple to build.
If you mess it up, it's easier parts to replace.
Yep. And I don't know, plenty of people do mess it up.
Mess up a rivet or so and
fix it.
fix
Yeah,
it.
it's no big deal. So you have to learn how to deal with that. That's fine. So the first thing you actually do is you start working on building these hinge bearing pieces. So this is what the rudder actually hangs off of from the back of the vertical stabilizer. Mm-hmm. So you have to fabricate that stuff. So there's a couple of metal pieces, aluminum pieces that you put together. There's a bearing that goes between them. And so this was like learning how those pieces sandwich together.
Yes, exactly.
You start using these metal fasteners to hold it together. What are those called?
Clecos.
That's right. And so this plane uses a lot of the bronze colored clecos, which are 1/8 inch for number 30 holes. And the other Vans aircraft, some of them use the smaller silver clecos. And we've used a few silver clecos in this one too.
Exactly.
But for the most part, it's those bronze clecos. And so this is just an introduction to starting to put the pieces together and having to drill some of the holes, having to list stuff out, having to match, learning how to read instructions.
Exactly.
Learning how to make sure you don't get too far ahead, what things are supposed to look like. So we're just doing a little bit of learning here. It's a good project to get started with and make sure you understand the basics of some of the sheet metal construction.
Exactly. So we'll start drilling holes and making sure that will fit the clecos that we'll eventually put into those holes for the piece.
Yeah. Well, what are we really going to put in there eventually?
We're eventually going to connect it to a bigger
part.
part.
But the clecos just hold it together temporarily. What do you actually use to hold it together permanently?
A rivet. A rivet. You'll put a rivet in.
So we've used a couple different types of rivets in this plane so far. The most common one that you use a lot is what?
The pulled rivet.
Pulled rivet. So you put it in. We'll demonstrate that in a little while, but you pull the rivet and it sets it. You also use more traditional rivets, which require either squeezing or using a rivet gun and a bucking bar to set. This one actually has that on it because it requires they're stronger rivets is what they are. And so for some of the structures, you have to use the stronger style rivet.
So we're reading some more instructions and making sure we have done all of it by checking it off. And so we move the camera angle to a different camera so we can start getting off really uneven edges of the pieces, the metal shavings, to shave it so it'll help it be smoother and it doesn't mess up the
A lot of this metal, when it comes, is already pre-formed, pre-cut, pre-shaped, but it does have rough edges on it.
Exactly.
And you need to make sure that the rough edges are smoothed out. So we have a special wheel that we use on a metal roller, yeah. So it helps. It's a Scotch-Brite wheel, and it helps smooth out the edges of all the rough pieces.
The only thing you want to make sure is while you're doing this is you want to make sure you have safety glasses on to make sure you don't get any metal shavings in your eyes. So it's just safer and it makes your eyes you don't lose your eyesight.
Yeah. One bad metal piece in your eye would ruin your life.
Yeah.
So
It's
cheaper to wear just a couple of pairs of safety glasses.
Yeah.
And if you ever see me not wearing a pair of safety glasses in this video, just ignore that and follow what Isaac is doing here.
So right now we're smoothing out the edges, and what I'm doing is I'm moving it sideways, up and down to get all those good pieces, and I feel to make sure it's all good. And I do maybe 8 or 9 pieces and overall because they use lots of the same pieces over and over again. So we do that, and then once I'm done with those, my mom will take it and she'll take it over to the table and we change the camera angle again. And this is what the non-pulled rivet looks like. So you have to have lots of arm strength to do it and make sure it's all lined up. And so it's a little bit tough at first. You just want to make sure you get the right grip on it, because sometimes if you don't have the right grip, it's not easy to line it up.
So what's the purpose of using rivets?
The purpose of using rivets is to keep the plane from falling apart, and it's kind of like a cleco, but a cleco is non-temporarily. A rivet is temporary and it won't move.
Yeah, you just said that exactly backwards. A cleco is temporary. A rivet is not temporary. A rivet is permanent. Yeah, the rivets are permanent fasteners that allow you to put two different pieces of metal together.
Yeah.
So they're permanent fasteners. You can also use bolts. You can also use, there's lots of other types of fasteners, but the reason rivets are used is because they're small and they're very light.
And they're much stronger.
They're strong and they're easy to set or to remove. And so you have to put lots of different types of pieces of metal together. And so as a result, there's lots of rivets in the plane that are used to hold those various types of pieces together. And then as you're flying, the forces of the airplane are pulling apart each other. Pieces are pulling, and so the rivets are always in this tension called shear tension. And so you have to have enough rivets in place. To keep all the pieces held together and not want to pull apart when the airplane is flying.
So a couple seconds ago, you saw my mom showing off one of the pieces we just finished with the non-pulled rivet hand machine. So that was one of those pieces.
So this was the very first day of actually working on the plane. Do you think you've improved since then? It's been a little while since we filmed this.
So you feel
like you've gotten better?
I feel like I've gotten better because I understand it more, and I've just done it a couple more times in the beginning. So I understand it at a much better pace. So yeah, thanks for watching today's episode of building a Vans RV-12. Make sure to like our other videos and subscribe on our road to 200 subscribers.